Stress is not good or bad. Stress is part of life. If you're not controlling stress and you're in an uncontrolled state, meaning that you're reacting to everything, you're constantly going to get burnt out. Of peak performance is where you are balancing this stuff every day so that you can keep doing peak performance.
Ladies and gentlemen, I got a very special guest today. Welcome to our Mind Titans podcast. Another great episode with this time the one, the only Dave Wood. You know, I can read Dave's official professional bio, but I'll just tell you that I've experienced Dave's training. Dave has worked with some of the best athletes, combat athletes, sports athletes in the world. Teaches them how to stay exceptionally calm under pressure. And that's what we're going to explore today. Why exactly you want to stay calm under pressure, the importance of the mental game. And athletes from different parts of the world all travel, come to see Dave, experience the amazing magic he does at Piha Beach, and he gets them to tap their inner resources so they can be the very best that they can be. So there's one thing I want to explore with Dave, why exactly it's important to access inner resources in a game and stay calm under pressure. So welcome to the podcast, Dave.
Thank you, Melvin. Glad to be here, man. I'm glad to see you again. It's been a few weeks since you were on the workshop here in person.
Yeah.
And it was quite a trip for you because you were up all night traveling and then you turned up and you were straight into it. But you smashed the weekend and we enjoyed having you there.
Oh, that's awesome. Dave, I just want to ask you a quick question, which is a lot of people, when they want to perform, they focus a lot on skills. But your area of expertise is in the mental game to help people stay calm. When did you discover that it's not just about skills, it's about being able to access these skills under pressure, and that most people do not know how to access the skills under pressure, and the mental game is important? At what point of time did you realize that the mental aspect was really, really critical?
Yeah, well, when you talk about skills, the most powerful skill is your mental skills, because it doesn't matter how much work you do if you can't focus and unlock your creativity and be calm under pressure. It becomes work for work's sake. And really for me, this journey is about this journey has been about building my own mental skills, because I worked in a very high stress, high pressure environment as an intensive care paramedic, working on a ambulance, and so I would respond to high acuity work, so critically unwell patients, and that job required that I turn up, be cognitively focused. I had to make clinical decisions under pressure, decisions about extrication, and there's often in these scenes that we go to, these jobs that we go to, there's a lot of things going on. And so I sort of noticed partway through my career as an intensive care paramedic is that I was turning up to these jobs and getting cognitively overwhelmed. And a few jobs went wrong, and I realized at that moment that I didn't actually have the required skills to be able to leverage stress and pressure in dynamic situations, and that started a deep dive into better understanding how stress manifests physically and mentally, and in terms of my own patterns of behavior. And now taking that knowledge from 12 years of working as an intensive care paramedic here in New Zealand, now into the performance environment, whether it be working with athletes or corporate professionals, doesn't matter who you are, we are all trying to optimize health and performance. And a big part of this, and whatever you're doing, is developing your mental skills to be able to perform at your highest level.
Wow. Let's talk a little bit about stress. Stress is a very interesting word. What happens when people are stressed out? Is stress a bad thing? You mentioned also just now, stress can overwhelm people. So let's talk about this concept of stress. Can we ever manage stress? Is stress bad for us? Does stress bring out the best in us? Is it possible to be overwhelmed and paralyzed by stress?
Stress is not good or bad. Stress is part of life. Exercising is stress. Cold water is stress. Sitting in traffic, trying to get to work is stressful. Waiting in the line to get your coffee can be stressful. So stress is non-specific and it's different for everyone. A big part of this is understanding that when there is stress, it can either be controlled or uncontrolled. And controlled stress is very good for you. It improves your focus. It improves your ability to be able to execute when it counts. Uncontrolled stress is very bad for you, and uncontrolled stress over a long period of time results in burnout, cognitive overload, lifestyle disease. And so the work that we do is about getting people to understand the difference between controlled stress and uncontrolled stress. And that requires that you have an understanding of how your body responds to stress, your body's stress response. And when there is stress, your brain interprets this information and sends signals to your body to upregulate some body systems like your heart rate, your breathing, your blood pressure, your pupils dilate. You get the blood flow that to your gut is shunted out to your peripheries, because this response is designed to get you ready to deal with a real or perceived threat. Now, the problem nowadays is that we are activating the stress response again when we're sitting in the traffic or when we're going into the boardroom to deliver, or there's hundreds of times during the day that we're activating the stress response when it's not actually necessary. And the work that we do is about getting people to understand that you can control your own body's stress response. And it's actually very simple, but it requires some actual training.
Wow. So I think there's some schools of thought that talk about, let's control the external circumstances, etc. But I find those to be very unsustainable. I'm not sure you can control every element in your life to make sure that they do not give you stress. Some people advocate moving to this place, doing this kind of thing, but inevitably life is unpredictable and it gives you stressful circumstances, sometimes outside of your control. Would you agree?
Yes, the stresses are many. And when we look at, what are the stresses, they're financial, they're organizational, they're psychosocial, they're physical, they're mental. And nowadays, the biggest one is psychological, pertaining to your thoughts. A thought comes in, you react to the thought, that gives way to thinking, that gives way to emotions, which gives way to your actions, which more or less controls your destiny, the way that you react. And so, getting a better, all of this stuff comes to getting a better understanding of your own mind. Because, again, the biggest threat that we're sort of faced with now in terms of stress is psychological stress, what's going on up here. And so to understand how to train to have better focus in the moment, and to not let ourselves be overwhelmed by thoughts and be able to control that, is where we can really start to have better control of how we respond to stress. And we talk a lot about working in the gap between stimulus and response. So the stimulus comes in, whether it be a thought, an emotion, a physical threat, a real threat, a perceived threat, and there is a gap before you respond. And the best performers in the world are the ones that can work in the gap between stimulus and response, because you have choices in that gap. And how we work really well in that gap, there's nothing external. It's about what we call top-down and bottom-up control of stress, intercepting stress in your mind and intercepting stress in your body. And actually, when we're trying to control stress, it's much easier to what we call bottom-up control, which is to regulate your body stress response through things like your breathing.
I think this is really, really profound because, Dave, in your experience, before people come to you, do they ever have any realization about this? What is people's level of a mental game before they come and learn some of these stuff? And what do you realize if they do not get this nailed down, right? My hypothesis is that most of them don't come in with a realization of this, including myself. And would you have realized that no matter how skillful, intelligent, brilliant they are, if they don't know how to regulate this, or they don't actually know how to perform?
Yeah, well, if you're not controlling stress and you're in an uncontrolled state, meaning that you're reacting to everything, you're constantly going to get burnt out. And you can get a lot of stuff done by just being busy, right? You can get a lot of stuff done being in that chronically upregulated state, and actually it's very addictive. Adrenaline is addictive and people get addicted to it. And when we talk about peak performance, it's actually about finding balance. So if you're in your busy day and you're constantly what we call in the red, which is the part of your nervous system, the sympathetic part of your nervous system that upregulates everything, you'll get a lot of done there, but there's a opportunity cost to that, and that is the cost on your physical and mental health. So what we want to do, and if you think about how we used to operate thousands and thousands of years ago, we would go out hunting. That required us to be in the red, upregulated, stimulated. And then we would bring the kill back to the village, and we would cook it up, and we would be in, close connection with other people. We knew the person next to us. We knew their name. We had good social interaction, and that was the very calming part of the day. And so we had balance in our nervous systems between that sympathetic being upregulated and parasympathetic being downregulated state. Now, if you take your average person nowadays, they are constantly in the red because there's deadlines. They've got to worry about mortgages. They've got to worry about finances. They've got family. There's all of these things that are keeping them in an upregulated state. So to find balance and to achieve peak performance, we have to push back against the stress during the day to shift back into that calming division of our nervous system. And if we don't, we're going to get a lot done, but we're going to get burnt out. And everyone this resonates with everybody, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So the question becomes, how do we find balance in a busy day? Because people say to me, I'm just too busy, I don't have time. Well, you have to. You have to find the time. And what I often say to people is, you're not busy, you're just not productive. And that being productive requires discipline with your time and your energy. Now, there's some really simple things you can do throughout your day to balance things out. And one of the most powerful forms of finding balance throughout your day is what we call the pillars of health. Reconnecting with nature is very calming for your nervous system. Social interaction, very calming for your nervous system. Making sure you're eating healthy food. If you're not, that's going to be stressing the system. Prioritizing your sleep. So how we used to, we used to be really in sync with our circadian rhythm, our body's natural clock. We'd wake up with the sunlight. When the sun went down, that would stimulate the onset of the release of melatonin from our pineal gland. It would make us sleepy. What are we doing in the evenings now? Stimulus. We're in front of our phones. We're checking emails. And so we're constantly keeping ourselves upregulated, stimulated. And then we expect to sleep at night. It doesn't work like that. And so back to these things that we can do throughout the day, prioritizing our sleep. Meditation is a massive one. If you are trying to achieve, anything worthwhile in life, you need to be able to be focused. And meditation teaches you how to better focus. It gives you a better connection to what's going on in your mind, a better understanding of your mind. And then we look at some of the other pillars of health around exercise, which is so important in terms of regulating stress. Exercise is stress, but it's a form of eustress, controlled stress. And so if we can integrate these things throughout our day, they are all very simple. But the problem is, again, it comes back to we are too busy. So, with the clients that come to me, if I give, because we program this stuff for them, right? For them to be able to be more productive throughout the day and to balance their nervous system, to improve their mental focus, all of these things we need. Often they will say to me, I'm too busy. And I will say to them, okay, well, you go about your busy life. You keep going the way that you are, keep getting burnt out, then pushing again, keep getting burnt out. I call it the feedback loop from hell. And eventually you will be forced to stop because you will become unwell.
Wow. Let's talk about this idea of balance. And, we live in a modern day society where that word, because that's the foundation of everything that you cover, right? The idea of balance, the fact that you can't just keep pushing and pushing. In fitness, there is the story of Milo where there's this guy that, every day he lifts a calf, and that as the calf gets bigger and bigger, his strength just increases linearly. I mean, that's kind of the dream, but I don't really think that is actually what actually happens. And people, peak performers, we use this inverted commas, peak performers have this idea that, let's take more caffeine, let's take more supplements, rest is for the weak. And I can speak for myself that when I first heard the word balance, I was like, balance, that's for weak people, give me that pill so I can sleep 3 hours a night and still get more things done. Who needs balance? What do you have to say to these people? Because I'm quite sure you've met these people before. That I probably am speaking for myself here. I don't believe that right now after interacting and hanging out with you. But what do you have to say? Because I think it's all psychological. Rest is bad. If you are strong, you push harder. Don't complain. Who needs sleep? What would you say to those people?
That you need a reality check and you need to start being smarter. And I don't mean that in a arrogant way, but the definition of strength is knowing when to push and when to pull back. The definition of strength is balance. And so you're right, our perspective is warped. Our perspective of performing at a high level is just keep pushing, keep pushing. And this has been fed to us over the years, right? It's like, you sleep later, all this nonsense. One bad sleep will affect reaction time by 30%.
Wow.
One bad sleep will keep your nervous system, the next day will keep your nervous system in the red all day. And so you'll never be able to perform to your potential because the system isn't operating with balance. Look, think of a car. If you had one car to last an entire lifetime, just one car, you would look after that car. You'd make sure the tires are pumped up. You'd know everything about the engine. You'd keep it waxed. You'd keep it clean. Well, that's the same as your body. You've got one body to last a lifetime, and you have to invest back into your physical and mental health every day because what we are demanding of ourselves nowadays is a lot, right? We're demanding a lot of ourselves. I think the problem, Melvin, is like once we get in the cycle of just push, work, push, the next deadline, the next achievement, it can be really addictive. And when we try to switch off,
I can speak for myself.
Try to switch off, it agitates us because we are so used to the constant adrenaline. Now, some of the symptoms, if people are listening and they're like, man, this really resonates with me, I'm going to read out to you some of the symptoms of chronic stress and sympathetic overload. That's that part of the nervous system that you get stuck in throughout the day when you're leading a really busy life.
Yeah.
Difficulty focusing. Irritability, reduced connection and empathy with others. Anger. Difficulty sleeping and erratic sleep patterns. Chronic conditions like high blood pressure, irritable bowel syndrome, racing mind, perfectionism, OCD, obsessive compulsive behavior, increased alertness and anxiety, brain fog, finding it hard to concentrate, emotional exhaustion, easily overwhelmed by people and situations, tense body, especially in your jaw, chest, and shoulders. And you will find that sometimes you are throughout the day either holding your breath or breathing up into your upper chest. These are all signs and symptoms of being overloaded, imbalance in the system.
Wow.
And it can seem, if you're experiencing these things, it can, and you're having anxiety and you're overloaded, it can be a very confusing space because if you don't understand what's going on in your body and you don't have the tools, you can start getting a bit desperate and you start looking for other people to fix the problem, right? The thing is, you have everything right in front of you, the pillars of health.
Or you start looking for a pill or something to take because you feel like, there's something wrong. I need Xanax, I need Prozac, I need something to, calm my system down. But you're advising against that.
Yeah. I tell you, nothing will work. Nothing will work unless you get these things right. Reconnecting with nature, social interaction, exercise, prioritizing your sleep, and some form of stress mitigation throughout the day, where you're either meditating or doing a breathing flow or listening to a yoga nidra or something that is calming the system, flushing the stress hormones out of the system, and then you go again, right? And then you get, because we do need to be in that upregulated state to get stuff done, right?
Yeah.
It's not like we need to be going through our lives all calm and floating on a cloud. No, it's not like that. You got to push, man. You got to push because you got stuff to achieve. You've got stuff to tick off, and you need to be in that sympathetic, that upregulated state. Yeah. But throughout the day, you have to intercept, go to the park, go for a walk, go and have a coffee with a mate or whatever. Lie down for 5 minutes and do a breathing meditation. It's simple stuff, man, and it's nothing external.
Mm.
It's an inside job.
Mm. It's all everything to do with regulation. I think that one is really critical. I can see top sports performers also. I remember when Izzy, one of the folks that you have worked with before, he was fighting this guy called Paulo Costa, and apparently Paulo Costa said afterwards that he couldn't sleep and he drank a bottle of red wine, and that was one of his worst performances ever. I'm not sure if you remember that fight between Izzy and Paulo Costa. That was not a good one. But I remember that. Yeah, I remember that. He said he couldn't sleep, and that he put himself in a poor state. So I think as a person that used to not care or think as much about sleep, I have since realized that it has a lot of effects on just performance, etc. So I want to kind of mention also that for most people that push, and they don't regulate rest and everything that you mentioned, they eventually still find some kind of rest, either by falling sick or by taking up poor habits also. Have you noticed that also? Because that would be, let's say you drink until you're stupid, that's a form of rest also, I guess, but it's just not particularly healthy. Have you noticed that?
Yes. You will start looking for things externally to have a vent for your anxiety. And those things can be drugs, alcohol, pornography, being on your phone all the time, whatever it is. These are all things to release stress, right? But they're not healthy, and they're not sustainable, and they affect your confidence. You never feel confident when you're doing that stuff. Feels good at the time, but afterwards you're just like, oh God, I'm fucking useless. That's what it affects your confidence. Whereas if you are doing these things that we're designed to do, which I've mentioned 3 times. One thing there is we have to expose ourselves to stress.
Wow. I think this is great. So what do you do with athletes that, clearly they have not learned this from other places, right? I think the funny thing is for athletes, peak performers, very often it's all precisely about their skill level. And in fact, they're given a lot of mental philosophies, like myself, either as a business person, entrepreneur, or maybe as a athlete. They're given a lot of philosophies that have everything to do with push harder. So what do you take them to Piha Beach? What do you do with them? How do you ingrain this? So for people listening, they're like, hey man, Dave said that, we gotta have some balance, but there's one thing to listen and there's another thing to apply. So what do you do to help them integrate this in a way so that they can be in control of their mind, and afterwards, right, be able to apply this, especially in a stressful situation like a fight? So how does the process work?
Okay, so first of all, we are all athletes. So when we use that term athletes, all it means is that you're specialized. So if you are a professional, if you are a mum or dad, if you are a tradesperson, you're an athlete, and you need to treat yourself like that because you're specialized. And we are not designed to be as specialized as what we are nowadays, right? We're designed to hunt, to walk all day. That's what we're designed to do. And our brains haven't evolved much in the last couple of thousand, 3,000-4,000 years. We're still very primal in that way. But what humans need is 3 things. They need to understand the underlying mechanisms of stress and pressure in terms of their own patterns of behavior. They need the skills, and then they need practical simulations. And the reason why those things are so important is that if you have the skills of stress, but you don't understand the underlying mechanisms, you can't apply it in a sophisticated way. You have to have visual representation of what you're doing. Right, I'm going into the boardroom, my heart is pounding, I feel sweaty, my mind is going a million miles an hour. Okay, in that moment, you stop. And if you can understand what's going on in your body and you can visualize it, well, this is just the stress response. My amygdala has activated my sympathetic nervous system. I now have adrenaline that is in my body, that is increasing my heart rate, increasing my blood pressure. It's doing all of these things, and I'm feeling that. Well, you can talk to it now. You can talk to it. You can see it. Now you can understand it. Then you apply the skills, right? I'm just going to do a quick body scan, relax every single muscle. I'm going to do 3 to 4 breathing flows. Inhale, hold, long exhale, relax. Then I'm going to tell myself, change the language. I'm good. I've got this. Those are the skills, right? Now, just as an example, now the practical simulation is when we take the person and we put them into a stressful situation, whether it be our training on the beach, the pool work, ice bath, and then we get them to apply the skills and the knowledge in those dynamic, stressful settings. And that is where the human brain switch gets flicked. And that's where we're like, right, this is how this thing works. This is how we understand it, learn it, apply it. And then we take those skills and we apply it into everything that we do. And now you're starting to train a pattern of controlled stress. This stuff's so simple.
Yeah, and it's free. And it's free, doesn't need equipment.
Yeah. I always say this, the complexity is in the simplicity. It's like a rugby player. They will practice passing the ball hundreds and thousands of times and they never perfect it. Like a fighter. Fights can be won just with the jab, right? Perfecting the jab, the timing, the execution, when to throw it. It's the same with this stuff. It's simple stuff. And it's the repetition of practicing it every day that makes you a master at it, which opens up what actual sustainable peak performance is. Sustainable, doing things every day that promote recovery, that optimize your health. Peak performance is, well, let's take it from the other way. Performance is doing anything. It can be tying your shoes or delivering a presentation or going and fighting in front of thousands of people. That is performance. Peak performance is doing it to the best of your ability. Sustainable part of peak performance is where you are balancing this stuff every day, the things that we've talked about, so that you can keep doing peak performance.
Wow. That is absolutely brilliant, because I think in your line of work or training athletes, we have seen people perform, but not at a sustainable level. You know, I've been watching some great footballers. I love watching soccer, and some of them, you know, they just retire way too early because their way of peak performance was drinking. You know, recently there was a footballer I love called Eden Hazard, fantastic dribbler, but he retired at 32. You know, you got people like Cristiano Ronaldo who are still going strong at 38. You know, 32 is supposed to be pretty much a prime age. The guy is done. He's done at 32. You know, and that's kind of sad, because I think most of these peak performers, they are not sustainable. You know, and I think if you pop pills and do all sorts of unhealthy ways, you can milk something out of yourself. Sleep 2 hours a night, 3 hours a night. You can push for a while, but it's not going to last very long. Am I right?
Yeah, there's a few things there. One is, you're absolutely right. The people that are operating at the highest level are the ones that understand these things we're talking about, and they integrate it into their everyday. The Ronaldos, the Kelly Slaters, with the goats of every sport, you know, they understand this stuff. They understand that strength is about finding balance.
I'm starting to see it.
And then the other thing is, you can get right to the top just by brute force and pushing, right? That whole thing of sleep later, push, you can get right to the very top, but it's not sustainable. And we see athletes get right to the very top and then the wheels fall off because they don't have good foundation. Now, when the wheels fall off and you're right at the top, are you going to go back to the beginning and get the foundations right? No. I tell you what you're going to do. You're going to be like, I need to train harder. I didn't push enough. And this just starts the spiral, and this is where we see these athletes
Wow. I think this is really, really profound. I think, yeah, because all the bad habits compound. You get the top, and then afterwards you only know one track, which is the push, and you never ever go back and fix the foundations. And the harder you push, the worse it gets. And then after a while, you just cannot perform anymore. I just have seen that so much. I think this is just such a good timely lesson, because I think a lot of peak performers listening to this, that's where they are. They got to the top by drinking a lot, by not sleeping, by really abusing their bodies, and that was what got them to the top. And I think they haven't learned some of these ideas.
If you're doing that stuff, you need to find a quiet room. You need to sit down for 5 minutes, and you need to really ask yourself what you're doing. You need to have a deep conversation with yourself. Winning is easy. Being a champion is difficult. Right? And a champion is someone that is true to themselves. They care about other people. They have good emotional regulation. They help other people. These are like the hallmarks of being a champion. They have clear understanding of their values, and they stick to them. They have a clear understanding of their mindset. They set goals. They're accountable. They don't use excuses. That's a champion, and anyone can win, but it's hard to be. It's harder to be a champion.
Wow. This is really profound. Let's talk a little bit about some of the things you mentioned, and just give people an understanding of why these things work. Especially, I kind of mentioned they're all free, they're all readily available. Why does going in nature? Why does listening to calming music? Why does breathing? And why does just doing all of these things? Why do they work? Why do they regulate the system? What about going into nature and breathing and meditating and calming music does for the body?
Yeah, it's about two things. It's about we all have an autonomic nervous system. That's the part of our nervous system that takes care of everything for us without us having to think about it. Your blood pressure, your heart rate, your breathing rate, the digestion of your food. You don't even have to think about any of that stuff. And there's two divisions. There's the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. Sympathetic, upregulated, accelerator on. Parasympathetic, downregulated, brakes on. Sympathetic, red brain. Parasympathetic, blue brain. Now, these things, like reconnecting with nature, so getting into the bush, in the ocean, on the beach, in the park, that naturally puts your nervous system into the parasympathetic, the blue, because it's calming. Well, think about a time where you've gone camping or you've been swimming in the ocean. You come out, you feel good, you feel calm, you feel more focused. That is because it's regulating, in real time, it's regulating your nervous system. It's switching off the red and it's activating the blue. Now, the same is for consciously controlling your breathing, a form of breathing meditation, where you slow your breathing down, you soften your breath, you quieten your breath. That activates the blue, the parasympathetic part of your nervous system. All of these things you've just talked about activate the parasympathetic division of your nervous system. And this is so important to train, because if you don't, you end up with what we call nervous system dysregulation. Now, being in the red for too long ends up being anxiety. Being too far in the red, anxiety. Being too far in the blue, depression. And some people toggle between the two, anxiety and depression. They have nervous system dysregulation. It's not balanced. So the things that we've talked about in this podcast, it feels so good when you go down to the pub and you have a beer with your mates and you're all laughing. You go away from it not just a beer, but lunch or whatever, right? You go away from it just feeling so calm. You feel good. That is because social interaction activates the parasympathetic part of your nervous system. Listening to music, going for a walk, preparing a nice meal, all of these things are like bringing the system down, calming the system. And again, the problem nowadays is that we are too much in the red because we're too busy. And because we're getting stressed, and because we're looking for external solutions to stress.
Wow. I think this has been exceptionally powerful. I just got a couple more questions before we wrap up here, because I think just you mentioned so many profound things. I really want to ask questions to really debunk people's psychological barriers towards this, because I know a lot of peak performers who would never ever want to take a break because they think it's weak. And I think we mentioned about balance, we mentioned about sustainability, we mentioned that you can perform, but at what cost? And after a while you reach the top, but you can't stay at the top also. And I hope, like, we provided a lot of skills also in terms for people to do this. If someone wanted to begin the process, so let's say listen to this and they realize, shit, I think my entire stress management system is broken. I'm just drinking, and that was me basically. I'm just really speaking for myself, because before that I didn't know about this. And even if I knew about this, I disregarded it. And the only thing I found myself doing every day was 3 to 4 cups of coffee. And when I was not, I was drinking Red Bull and everything, and just wanting to push. And even celebrating the fact that I slept very little and barely took care of myself. What's the first step? It's like a drug addict. And of course, having tons of unhealthy ways to cope with this. So that's probably why I went to New Zealand. So if people realize they're in this situation, how can they begin to make a change? You're like, oh my God, I'm in so deep.
Yeah. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. That's the first thing. Don't think you got to stop everything and you got to become you got to meditate all day. And no, just start integrating some simple things into your day. Just start small. Start with a 5-minute meditation. Start with, at some point in your day, just going to the park and just reconnecting with nature. Start by exercising every day in a meaningful way. Start by, eating better food. Start by getting rid of some of the habits that are detrimental to health and performance. This is how we find balance. Don't think you got to change everything. You're already good. You're already performing at a high level. You're already doing well. But identify some of those patterns of behavior that are holding you back and replace them with more sustainable patterns, because it's all just about patterns, right? Your whole day is just about patterns. You wake up, you get up, you go downstairs, or you go to the kitchen, you prepare something, you read the newspaper, you have a glass. It's all just patterns, right?
Yeah.
And so if we get the patterns right, hey, get up, 5-minute meditation. Boom, you've set your day up. Practice 2 minutes of gratitude. Drink a big glass of water. Put some good fuel in the body. Drive to work, listen to a podcast. When you're at home at night, rather than being on YouTube and having this constant stimulus, read a book. Empower yourself. These are the things that our perception of peak performance is totally warped. We think peak performance are these people that are just making lots of money and
never sleeping, always working,
and accumulating more things. That's not peak performance. And I can tell you right now, if you're listening and that is you, I can guarantee you're not happy, because you instinctively know there's an imbalance there. You instinctively know it's not sustainable. And you're feeling some of the things that we've talked about. And so your question is, how do you get started? Just start simple. Don't overcomplicate it. Get into a practice of daily meditation. We know, based on thousands of gold standard research articles, that meditation is one of the best, it is the best way. You can't even refute it, to improve your mental focus, to get a better understanding of your mind.
Wow. I've asked virtually all the questions I have, Dave. I think this is really, really profound. I think I want to speak for myself, saying, like, the reason I traveled like 9 hours to New Zealand and 9 hours back, and and did all of that, is because I find that most of the questions I asked today were all for me. I was precisely and exactly that person. And I completely resonate with the fact that I think I've been misguided in what peak performance is. I always thought it was just about pushing, and I felt after a while that I don't think I could push anymore. If you're sleeping 3 hours a night, surely it can't be sleeping 1 hour a night, right? I mean, and I was also thinking, like, how long is this going to last? Because being so imbalanced was like, just really costing me a lot. And yeah, so
Yeah, the one of the most powerful metrics in terms of peak performance is sleep. Again, we know this based on just when you sleep is when you recover. That's where all the information that's come in during the day is processed. That's where the deep recovery in your body takes place. And you don't get that right, then don't worry about it. You're not peak performing. You're not a peak performer. And I have athletes that come to me and they say to me, "I'm looking for the 1%," and it's just laughable. They're operating at about 50-60%. They're not recovering well. They're not sleeping well. They don't have balanced nervous systems. They're not doing the fundamentals, getting the foundations really strong for later on when they do get to the top, and they got to try and sustain it. So. Yeah, and one of the hallmarks of peak performance is curiosity. So if you're listening and this tickles your curiosity, then go and explore it. Go and explore meditation. Go and explore reconnecting with nature and the effect on your nervous system. Go Google sustainable peak performance, and there's lots of good stuff there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fantastic. Dave, if someone wants to learn more from you, just love for you to share a little bit about the experiences you do. But you've been so generous in sharing the knowledge. But I think there's a huge difference between the knowledge and also the experience. As a person that's been to Piha and really had that awakening, and I want to share a little bit about my experience. Right, when I was there, I was immensely grateful because I could not just know this stuff, but I could feel like, just before you even give us the seminar and then the understanding, just being in nature, I felt myself get more regulated. And I haven't been in nature for so long, without wearing shoes and stuff like that. Just being there without a thought at all. I was like, oh my God, like I reconnected. Like you weren't even teaching anything yet. It's just like, hey, you're just gonna walk up. And I was like, I need to do this more often, man. Like, and I was just that alone. It wasn't even the knowledge. It was just the reconnecting and the realization that I was so out of whack, and like this is what I need, and that I need to do this more. So could you describe a little bit about what you do? How can people find out more about the experiences, etc., so that if anyone feels connected to it, then who knows, they might find themselves at PL also.
Yeah, to get a hold of me is through my website, wmw.co.nz, or through my Instagram, Integrated Training. And yeah, we run, I do a lot of virtual work with clients abroad. I live here in New Zealand, but our company is global in that respect. We run this Calm Under Pressure workshop here in New Zealand. It's 2 days. It's a very powerful workshop. It's a transformative workshop, and it gives you the skills of stress. And like we're starting to get more and more people come from abroad like yourself, which I think just speaks to the volume of where we've got this workshop to. And, my goal with this workshop is to make it the best stress mitigation, sustainable peak performance workshop in the world. And I think we're on the way to doing that. And, yeah, man. And I don't just work with athletes. I work with anybody who's trying to optimize their health and performance.
Yeah, and I can speak for that. I'm an entrepreneur. There were people who wanted to have fighting as a career. I know you work with athletes, obviously. There were also paramedics there. There was just people wanting to be a better person there. So be a better father, be a better husband, be a better wife, be a better whatever, right? Just over there because and I thought it was really, really cool. So first off, for everyone listening, I don't know when you'll be watching this, but I'm very excited to spend more time with Dave. I'm going back, as of this shooting, I think in a couple of weeks, I'll be right there with Dave again. And I've treated myself to 3 days together with Dave. That's my own birthday present for myself. 3 intensive days. That's how much I enjoy this work. Because I just really resonate with what you say today. Sustainable peak performance. My understanding, I think a lot of people's understanding of peak performance is out of whack. First off, and number 2, it's definitely not sustainable. So I think they don't understand peak performance. First off, so it's completely wrong, and it's 100% not sustainable. So I think, Dave, you're onto something really, really awesome. And when you describe all of these things, then I can really see myself performing at a high level long into the future. when I'm 50, 60, 70, etc. I don't think if I'm like drinking myself stupid every night or practicing unhealthy habits, I'm going to last that long. I'm just going to self-destruct. and it's that.
Melvin, what I really like about you is you have identified this, and you are really at a point in your life where you are ready to invest both your time, your energy, and there's a money investment as well in your own physical and mental health. And you've turned up, you've done our Calm Under Pressure 1 workshop, you've enrolled in the Calm Under Pressure 2 workshop, which is in 2 weeks. And over that 2 days, we're going to go deep, man, and further your understanding and your skills and your ability to apply all of this stuff and, practical simulation. So I look forward to having you back again. I think you're a bloody legend.
Wow. Thanks so much, Dave. Really appreciate it. For everyone else watching, please check Dave out. He gave you his IG, gave you his handle. Check out his work. And if it resonates with you, hopefully you find you at Piha Beach and you can integrate this within your life. We'll see you next time. Take care, guys.